Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at French Ice, number 1 through 6. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part episode. This series ran to number 13, so next episode we'll be looking at 7 through 13. This is a wonderful comic from France. It was created by a guy named Lelong. He doesn't use his first name. I think it's Jean-Marc or something, but he never uses it. He always signs his work Lelong, and he's known as Lelong in France. And apparently he's a very popular cartoonist, or at least he was. He killed himself in like 2003 or something like that. But he created Carmen Cru, who is the character in all of these, in 1984. So these are relatively new when Renegade Press published these French Ice reprints of Carmen Cru in like 1987. At least that's when it began. Renegade Press was the company that Denis Laubert started after her and Dave Sim split up. She was helping him run Aardvark Vanaheim, and now she created her own independent black and white company. And they published a lot of interesting stuff, including Journey, I believe at one point. Which we have been looking at. So let's check these out. I think you guys are going to be amazed. I can't believe these have never been reprinted. Because this art, you can tell by the cover, it's just, this guy has got such chops. He's just a master cartoonist. These are funny as hell, too. So we start off with the sanitation department. Carmen Cru sees that her garbage has still not been picked up. And so she puts it on her bicycle and she rides down to the sanitation department. I love the architecture of the sanitation department. It's so different than most of the scenarios in this comic, the scenery, because she lives in like, old-timey Paris or some city. And, like a very, all the buildings are kind of old. But this is like, obviously, there's a lot of money involved in these government buildings. So we get a quick sketch of her character. She's just like the rudest, meanest old lady in the world. She just is totally insulting this poor receptionist here and calling him an idiot. And so she goes to the sanitation department on the 3rd floor, and she meets one of the bureaucrats there. And she dumps her garbage right on his carpet in his office and says, well, you guys haven't picked up my garbage, so I'm bringing it down here. Somebody's got to do something with it. And she's having this debate with this guy, but basically all she can say is just like, you guys have to pick up my garbage. And there's some mitigating circumstances why they don't. Like her cottage is down these steps, so it's, it's not really accessible from the road. But there's one of two type of people who encounter Carmen Cru. There's kind of people like this who are trying to be polite, trying to follow the mores of society, and she just runs roughshod all over them, just by being obstinate and, never taking no for an answer. And we'll meet the other kind of people who she encounters soon, which are the bastards who try to take advantage of a poor old lady. She makes a point to dump a little bit more garbage in front of the receptionist that was at the bottom of the barrel. And then she walks off. So now we see the other type of person. This is her, 7th cousin. He lives in the country on a farm. He comes to visit her. And he is just such a dick. He is just always like, come on, give me some money, Auntie. I know you got some money. He's just if Carmen Cru wasn't who she was, he would take total advantage of her. He'd probably have her in a nursing home and take her house, but Carmen Cru is way too tough for that. The whole time he's just like saying, come on, don't you want to give me a Christmas present? Give me some money. I want to go drinking. And she just loathes him. He's even like looking through her drawers trying to find her money. So finally she says, okay, I'll show you where I keep my money. And it's in this box in the backyard. She says, yeah, it's kind of stuck. You'll really have to shake it and kick it off. And then all these bees swarm out. It was her, she's a beekeeper. So she tells him, she says, yeah, I'm not strong enough. I'm an old lady. I haven't been able to take that cover off for a month now. I guess the honey congealed. And he's all getting attacked by the bees. She obviously doesn't give a shit. In fact, she loves it. Oh, great. She's so great. I hope you guys are noticing this art. I mean, God, every background is beautifully drawn. Just exquisite. Every brick, every little scrub of a tree. So this one's called The Workman and the Old Lady. One morning she wakes up to the sound of a jackhammer. This workman has been tasked with digging this big trench, I guess for a sewer pipe or something. It's right across her front yard. This is very, kind of reminds me of that movie Up, where she has this little old cottage that's probably 200 years old, but the whole city is built up around her. Of course, she would never sell. She's very obstinate. So she convinces this guy that, well, I have to go out. You have to carry me across this trench. I'm too old. I'm not limber enough. So he does. She comes back like a minute later and says, I forgot my wallet. You got to carry me back. And so as the day proceeds, she keeps going in and out. This guy has to keep lifting her. His back is starting to hurt. He's like, I can't do this much more, lady. He's even got to carry her bike over. And this is a thing that Lelong does a lot. A lot of the jokes and the dialogue will always be off camera. We'll hear these people talking about Carmen Cru while we see her, crankily doing whatever she's doing. She's a big crank. And I guess some guy from his job shows up and says, what happened to the ditch you were supposed to dig? He's like, well, I actually filled it back in. I couldn't take carrying her back and forth over it. Get in again. I'm worn out. This old lady's wearing me out. And this guy somehow misunderstands him and thinks that he's having sex with Carmen. He says, you had sex with an old lady 22 times? You have a wife. That's disgusting. And of course, the whole time Carmen is talking about how he ruined her day and touching her with his dirty hands. Now she smells like sweat and tar. It's disgusting. And I like this at the end. She says, when I was young, there was a workman like him that wanted to marry me. I thought about it for a while, but I turned him down. Sure was a narrow escape. She's such a misanthrope. She just hates everyone. So one day she's kind of gets guilted into babysitting this little boy from upstairs. Because there's an apartment complex all around her. And he is just the shittiest little brat. He's just like, how come you're so ugly? Your nose is ridiculous. You're not like my grandma. You're not nice. You stink. And she's just putting up with it. But of course, the whole time, just grousing about it. How much she hates this burden. I like the way he draws this little kid. I like the way he draws everyone. He's really good at caricature. He gets hungry and she's pissed off that she even has to feed him. She's like, now I have to feed you too? She gives him some wine to shut him up. And he gulps it down and feels really sick. She doesn't care at all. She's not like, oh, I feel bad because I gave that kid wine. And now we hear the people outside. The mother shows up. And she's like, oh my God, did she give you wine? Are you drunk? Are you sick? I'll never leave you with her again. And of course, That's exactly what Carmen wanted. And of course, she always, she's always espousing her misanthropic views. People have to ruin everything. It really keeps you from wanting to be nice. Now I'm all alone again. Sometimes you wonder if life's worth living. She's such a joyless old bag. They get all these letters from industry professionals, including Harvey Kurtzman writes in. They sent him a preview copy, I guess. Coming attractions, ads, and that's it for number 1. Another beautiful cover here. This one's called Old Pals, and this is kind of interesting because this will become a recurring character, this mean old tomcat. This is like that. First of all, he looks like the size of like a wildcat. He's huge and just mean as hell. He's swiping his claws at Carmen, hissing at her. So the way Carmen deals with it, she just gets a broom and swats the shit out of him. Carmen doesn't take any shit. She's such an iconic character, this Carmen Cru. I fucking love her. Even though I wouldn't love to know her, she's a horrible old lady. So this cat's like stealing a fish from her grocery basket. And he goes to sleep, so she just pours a big bucket of water on him. And then the cat finally goes home. And she can hear the neighbors, the owners of the cat. And they're like, oh, what happened to you? You're all wet. And then the cat scratches their owner. He's like, you rotten beast. You clawed me. Get the hell out of here. Go back to wherever you came from. And the cat climbs back over the wall. I love this ending. Carmen Cru gives him a bowl of milk. Because she's like, I guess he's just like me, this cat. He's an ordinary old cuss. Next one's called The Oysters. Carmen goes to a fancy restaurant. She gets some oysters. I guess she goes there every now and then. And I love that her drink is a double bourbon. She's always getting that. I guess in France this is okay. These 2 old hippies say, hey, could we sit here? There's no more room. And I guess that's just normal to share a table in a restaurant. And they're going on and on about just kind of making lovey-dovey talk, but actually explicit. Like, he says something like, I want your body. Do you know what I do with my tongue? And so she starts chastising them. It's like, you shouldn't say disgusting things like that, especially when people are eating. And they're these old hippies, so they're like, oh, we're renewing our love with statements of passion. It keeps, our love alive. And they keep talking like that, but now they're kind of whispering. Of course, you can still hear. And finally, they leave. And she tells them, the waiter shows up and she says, I'm not paying for these oysters. I found a puncture patch in them for a bike tire. And we hear off camera, the chef says, or the cook says, that's weird. Just last week, she had like a tire iron in the clams. She gets no luck. So we also find out Carmen Cru is just a pretty larcenous. I mean, there's many comics in here where she just steals blindly from people. She doesn't care. Now we have the library. Carmen Cru comes to the library to return some books. One of the books has all the pages ripped out. And of course, she's just like, oh, how dare you accuse me of being a thief and a vandal? I'll complain to your supervisor. The book was like that when I got it. So he's like, oh, okay, I don't know. And he shows her, guides her to the book she's wanting to read. And she starts ripping out pages. And the library guy says, that's against the law to mutilate a book. Carmen Cru thinks there's nothing wrong with it. She says, they won't even miss it. They won't even know it's gone. So he says, I have to find you. And then the guy who first saw her ripping out the pages and squealed on her, some patron, she accuses him. She says, that guy's been putting books in his duffel bag. He's been stealing books the whole time. And while the library guy is dealing with that, saying, open your bag, sir, Carmen Cru quietly walks out the door, grabs a bunch of books, steals them herself. And, of course, she's still muttering to herself that, oh, look, there's no one to even check out these books. I'll never come here again. So she complains about this place that she's robbing. Now we have more celebrity letters, one from Sergio Aragones, one from Mobius. They're all very glowing, very positive about Carmen Cru. I mean, I still find this phenomenal, this level of artistry. Like I said, I can't believe these haven't been reprinted. But they're also, man, her character is amazing. I could read about her for, I don't know, thousands of pages. So now we have the inheritance. And this is Carmen has to go to the country. The farm where that cousin came from. Here's the cousin. We see him again on his home turf. And here's another relative. I think this is one of her cousins. He's just a weirdo guy who, this is what it looks like when he talks. That's how Lelong represents his diction. It's basically he's a big mumble mouth because I think his teeth are missing. So one of Carmen's relatives died. That's why she's visiting. And this cousin, once again, is being a total piece of shit, asking her for money. And then he says, oh, you got to take her things. We don't have room for her here. When she died, she left some crap. Anything worth of value, we took and sold. We didn't think you'd mind. So it's like a crutch, some false teeth, and a Bible. And Carmen Cru's like, I don't want that. Was there anything else? And then he goes on to tell her all her Social Security checks they took for the funeral. And they also kind of imply that they let her die. Like she was getting sicker and sicker, this elderly relative. And they didn't want to pay for a doctor for medicine. So the cousin even says, oh, we just thought she'd get better by herself. So it's like, this guy is a fucking sociopath. So anything Carmen does to him is great. So basically Carmen says, I don't give a shit about the money. There was a picture I wanted where we were both in it. We were together. And I really want that picture. The cousin says they didn't see any picture. So as Carmen leaves, she opens the door to the pig shit, and lets all the pigs out. And as she waits for her bus, we can hear them yelling, the pigs are all out. They're shitting in the garden. They just shit on the lettuce. And of course, on the bus, everyone hates her. She's terrible. She sits right on a guy's lap. She's like, in my day, a guy would give up his seat for an old lady. Now we have the animal's friend. Here's another really shitty kid. This bratty little kid, this little girl. And, oh, she's horrible. If I can't read all the dialogue, but just trust me, she's just the most, like, spoiled little brat ever. And Carmen walks up to sit on this bench, and it scares away her little birdie friends that she was feeding breadcrumbs to. So now she is mad at Carmen Cru. She throws breadcrumbs at her. And so she says, give me some candy. And Carmen Cru reaches into her pocket, and she says, oh, black licorice. And she starts chewing on it. And she says, Mother, my throat, it hurts. And it turns out Carmen gave her chewing tobacco. Oh, God, that fucking little girl deserved it. She's terrible. Now we got number 3. Another great cover. All the art in this. There's not one bum panel in this whole comic. In fact, every panel is amazingly good. This one's called The Club. These kind of 2 older people are trying to convince Carmen that she let them in. They're trying to convince her to go to this retirement home and how much better it would be. And Carmen's just, the whole time, she just keeps saying, oh, why did I ever let you in my house? You guys suck. I wish you'd leave. I don't want to hear any more of this shit. You're terrible. You're idiots. The whole time, though, this guy here is kind of like saying, oh, do you own this house? What's the mortgage? Like, he's totally coveting her house. And I'm sure he's thinking, oh, yeah, if I can get it to the home, maybe I'll be able to buy this house. He goes out to he says, can I use your bathroom? And she says, yeah, it's the outhouse out back. He comes back with cobwebs all over him. He says, it was just a hole and some boards and cobwebs everywhere. So they finally leave. Carmen walks out to the outhouse and says it could collapse any time. It's dangerous. I love this at the end. She says, old people are filthy. They're worse than animals. God, that art is so nice. So this is just some old outhouse she doesn't even use. But she wanted him to go use it because it's dangerous. And maybe he could have fell through into the pit. She's not a nice lady. This is the consultation. And she just barges into her doctor's office one day. Skips the line, comes in through the back door. And she says, doctor, I don't know, when I ride my bike up a steep hill, I get short of breath and my legs kind of hurt. Like, she's like built like a fucking horse. She's like, I don't know, 90 or something. But she's worried because she breathes a little heavy when she rides a bike with a cart full of compost up a hill. So the doctor reassures her. He's like, you're fit as hell. You're fine. You're a little older, so it's going to be a little harder. When he has to examine her, she makes him close the lights. So she finally leaves, and he says, next patient. And the nurse says everyone left. Because as Carmen Cru was leaving through the waiting room, she said she refused to pay, loudly proclaimed that he was a quack. She also said you try to fondle her in the dark, and then you hit her, with the reflex hammer, and then you refuse to treat her. Because he told her, he's like, you don't need anything, you're healthy. So all the patients left. That's one of the nice guys who she rolls right over. Here's a message from Lelong himself. And I'm sorry, it's not a message. It's not a letter. That's in the next issue. It's just a little biography of Lelong. And I guess I'm wrong, guys. In 1981, this says he created Carmen Cru for the magazine Fluid Glacial. And also there's a Carmen Cru stage production. And I would love to see this. Here's a photo from it. Now we have the compost. So we see Carmen riding her bicycle with her little carriage, her little cart to get some compost. Her cart kind of falls off the bike. It's got a faulty connector or something, a chain. And this priest almost hits this priest. This priest is pretty wacky. And he says, oh, I'll help you get some compost. And she says, okay, you pull the cart. Follow me. This is the best place to get compost. And she takes him to the graveyard. So because she's an old lady, he insists on shoveling for her. And he's so kooky, he doesn't even realize he's desecrating a grave. He's pretty zany, pretty crazy. And even when he digs up a skull, he's like, oh, that'll be good for compost, right? Bones? He's still not saying, oh, wait, you're not supposed to desecrate graves. Here's this scary looking skull. And then he even helps her take it home. Pretty weird episode. This one's called The Railroad Tie. Once again, showing us Carmen Cru's larcenous nature. She's at the railroad depot. She's basically stealing railroad ties to burn. This guy from the railroad, he comes up and like he's a obviously a moron because he thinks Carmen works for the railroad company. He says, we got to stick together. Let me help you. And then as he talks to her, Carmen doesn't lie at all. She never says, oh yeah, I work for the railroad. She usually just says, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. She even tells them that she plans to burn them. She says they burn well. And finally this guy realizes that she doesn't work for the railroad. Even after helping her, he's like, oh, wait a second. You shouldn't be taking these. Stealing is a crime. But Carmen's attitude is if somebody leaves something outside, that means they don't want it. And so I have every right to take it. And this railroad guy's he's gone. He's a nut. He just keeps talking about the old days on the railroad. Even though he chastises her for stealing, he doesn't really stop her. And then, icing on the cake, she changes the tracks with the big switch. And as she's riding off, or walking off with her cart, she can hear the guy say, oh my God, the two trains are going to crash. Somebody switched the tracks. So she's also a mass murderer. And yet I still find her very endearing, and I love her character. Here's number 4. That pretty much sums up her character right there. That look on her face. This one's called Sunday Afternoon. And these kind of busybody neighbors are trying to, they're knocking on her door. They're worried about her. They haven't seen her in 3 days. But we realize that they're petty little shitty people by their dialogue through the door. The husband's all like, I'm going to knock down her door. And that's what this, Carmen Cru's not saying a word really. That's the whole time we hear their dialogue through the door. So the husband, I guess, tries to break down the door and totally dislocates his shoulder and is screaming. And while they're doing all this, she's writing a letter to her district attorney saying, I can no longer enjoy a quiet Sunday afternoon. There's a bunch of nameless maniacs who come and persecute me every Sunday. And she sits down to read, happy in the fact that that guy dislocated his shoulder and has to go to the hospital. Next, we see the portrait. Carmen needs her picture taken, so she goes to this photographic studio. Sorry, I keep getting lost in the art. And I love this. This is Carmen Cru's smile, which I don't think we'll ever see her do this again, which is probably a good thing because it's ghastly. And this guy's a frustrated artist. And basically he thinks, oh my God, with this amazingly worn face, this will be a beautiful art photo showing the ravages of time. Thinking it'll be very profound, like something, I don't know, more Diane Arbus than just like Sears photo department. And then when she's done, she says, it's a photo. So he's like, oh, it's going to take like a week to develop. She says, no, I need it now. So he's like, oh, I guess I have a Polaroid camera. And he's disgusted with himself that he has to use a Polaroid like it's beneath him. But he takes them, and then the guy at the end, I don't quite get this, but this whole meeting with Carmen Cru has basically made him say, I'm not an artist. And he calls up his, I think his agent, and says, give me a wedding, give me a bar mitzvah, I'll do anything. I just want to take some photos with Polaroids. Next we have the broken basket. The scenery here is just, I've never been to Paris, but it just really looks like Paris probably looks. I feel it in my gut. So whenever she needs to turn off her fuse, I guess in old-timey in the 80s in France, like when you left your house, you would turn the fuse off, maybe so there wouldn't be an electrical fire. She can't reach her switch, so every time she has to do it, she turns off everyone else's power in the apartment complex, so they have to come run down, and then she says, hey, hit my switch for me. So, of course, they're fucking sick of it, and, but they do it, because she's an old lady. This neighbor, Raul, he becomes a regular character. She always takes advantage of him to carry her bike up and down the stairs leading to her cottage. And it's just something this guy, Raul, realizes, oh, it's just part of my life now, I guess. Whenever she knocks, I got to go walk her bike down, walk it up. The level of drawing here. So amazing, this guy. Why aren't more people talking about this guy? So good. So once again, Raul's got to lug her bike. But then this time, he's so surprised. She actually gives him a quarter. As if he's like a little boy doing a chore. So there's just a little, kind of a little scene of like, what it's like living next to Carmen Cru. What a cross it is to bear. More industry letters. One from Steve Gerber, Walter Simonson, John Ostrander. Next we have bad weather. It starts to rain. Carmen Cru opens her umbrella. She's going to a little bike shop. We see that she can't close her umbrella. It's broken. So she says, hey, I left my bike here a while ago. I need it. And this guy's dealt with her before. I kind of like how he deals with her. He just calls her sweetie all the time and like, oh, little pumpkin. But he knows she's a horrible old lady. That's his passive way of dealing with her. Being ultra polite to her and sweet. Of course it doesn't work. Carmen keeps calling him an idiot and a moron. So he says, sorry, there's a lot of bikes in the shop. You're still going to have to wait a few days. And then he says, how come you haven't closed your umbrella? It's kind of rude to have an open umbrella indoors. She says, it's broke. I can't close it. So he says, let me take a look at it. And so he breaks it worse because now he makes it so it won't stay open. So on the way out the door, Carmen just steals another bike and tries to walk off with her umbrella, keeps shutting on her head. Next, we have the accountants. Carmen's doing her monthly bookkeeping, and it's not adding up. And we have the return of that shitty nephew, 10th removed, and he hasn't changed at all. She's like, oh, I happen to be in town. Can you spare me some money so I can get a bus back home? And, you know, he's really tired. I guess he's been at a fair all day with his buddies. So he says, oh, I'm going to come with you. I want to sit down in their office while you go to your accountant. He flirts with the secretary. So she goes into her accountant's office. And the cousin of the nephew comes in. And we find out that she had a great uncle who she inherited like basically a cabin in the woods, some old like sheep farm or something. It's not worth anything. Also, she inherited that broken umbrella from him. That's why she's so attached. So the accountant realizes, oh, the reason why your accounts don't add up is because you have all these unpaid bills you haven't paid for years. And she says, I'm not paying them. They're crooks. They're trying to rip me off. And we don't know from her character that they're totally legitimate bills that she just doesn't want to pay. The accountant says, one of them is from me even, from my accounting services. And it doesn't faze her. So finally he says, hey, there's the bill you owe me, by the way. And she says, you can keep it. I don't pay crooks. And because she's a little old lady, she gets away with all this shit. Okay, that's it for that issue. That's a frightening sight. One of the letter writers described Carmen Cru as the Dirty Harry of little old bag ladies. I wouldn't be surprised. She could totally murder someone. It wouldn't surprise me. Now we have the new tenant. So this guy is some like recently paupered like baron or something, aristocrat, who got kicked out of his castle for debts, and now he's moving into this apartment complex near Carmen. All of his fancy antiques are like cluttering the yard. Carmen can't even get by to get to her house. So she goes to complain. This guy is quite a character. He's, just a typical rich old guy who doesn't really have a sense of reality and how to live just like normal people. And Carmen's being so rude to him. She even like knocks over one of his vases on purpose. But the whole time is just like, what a delightful woman. What a character. I love this one. And she's just foul. But I guess he admires her spirit. So Carmen says, you got to get rid of all this junk in the yard. He's like, I'm trying to sell it to pay off my debts. It'll just be out for a few days. So Carmen doesn't even want to wait half a day. So Carmen goes out to where all of these like amazingly expensive antiques are and pours gasoline on them and lights them on fire. And as she walks back to her house, we can hear that aristocrat talking about Carmen Cru. And he says, Cru, this name carries the strength of the storm, the rage of the tiger, the resilience of steel. What a character. By Jupiter, what a character. I like that. So I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of this aristocrat. I like how Carmen Cru comments. She says, I thought we got rid of these kind of assholes. I thought we had a revolution and put them all to the guillotine, but I guess some of them survived. They keep making a mess of things. Now we have the routine, which is a typical day in the life of Carmen Cru. And we just see her doing all of her daily chores. I guess she just has a bed. What are those called? I'm sorry. She basically poops in a bucket in her bedroom and pees. I can't think of the word. It's a very simple word. I'm getting old. And she always dumps it in the neighbor's garbage. So she basically dumps her poo and pee in this neighbor's garbage. She, once again, Raul's got to lift her bicycle up the stairs. She wakes up everybody by slamming the front gate. She steals some apples from a tree. She goes to the butcher shop and she complains. She says, this meat's rotten, because she bought it a week ago and let it go rotten. She gets her money back. Raul all day is carrying her bike up and down the stairs in between her chores. She goes to a bar and then she refuses to pay because she says the bourbon was watered down. And then she writes in her diary, which is just very mundane. Just says, the weather was nice. And as she goes to bed, she says, sometimes I wonder about the meaning of life. Next is the interview. And these two newspaper reporters come to Carmen Cru's house to interview her. Because she's like the oldest lady in town. As you can imagine, she's not happy with this at all. She's pretty much just ignoring them. This reporter, keeps asking her questions. Tell me about this. And she doesn't answer. So he's just like, don't worry about it. I'll fix it. I'll work with what I have. So once again, she uses her beekeeping to keep people away. She has to get the honey, so she smokes the bees out. And the next day, the article comes out. They sent her a free copy, I guess. And it's total malarkey. The guy just made up all this shit, just like some lazy journalist will do. So she goes to the newspaper offices, returns the paper, says, I didn't ask for this. I don't need it. Carmen Cru, a big-hearted woman. Right off the bat, you know it's bullshit. Next is the petition. And finally, all of the neighbors sign a petition to get her evicted. They've had enough. Look at this page. It's all just their dialogue. You don't see any characters, just the beautiful scenery around this apartment building. So great. Just every little rusty pipe is beautifully drawn. The garbage cans. So the four husbands go to confront her with the petition. This guy's a moron, the spokesman for their group. And he can't even read some of the words. He doesn't know how to pronounce them. So he tells her the deal. And she just says, come in. Which seems very un-Carmen Cru-like. So they come in. She says, have a seat. And they complain about her cats. She says, they're not my cats. They come and go as they please. They complain about the bees in her hive. Some people have gotten stung. And she says, bees don't bother people unless the people are being assholes and acting all afraid of them. And in that case, they're schmucks. So fuck them. They tell her she's noisy and her place is unkept and a shambles. And they basically say she's crazy. Now, Raoul here says, I agree about the cats and the bees, but I don't like this crazy business. Nobody told me about this. My wife actually signed the petition because I have a shaky hand from drinking so much. And so while they're arguing amongst themselves, Carmen sits down and writes a letter. She writes a petition. I, the undersigned Carmen Cru, hereby affirm that I live in the constant and degrading company of a bunch of lunatics. So she just totally fires a salvo back at them. And she says she's going to send it to the district attorney. As they leave, of course, Lelong's the thing. We can still hear their voices. And I guess they left the petition back at her house. And they're afraid to go back and get it. So she puts it right where it belongs. With all the papers in the loo in the outhouse. Even though she doesn't use it. I guess she figures one day she might have to. Each person and each thing in its place. I hate disorder. It makes me puke. Mailbox again. And that's it for that issue. Next we have number 6. Another great cover. I haven't really even mentioned each. I don't know if these are spot illustrations. I'm pretty sure these aren't in the stories. So these are like every inside front cover has a nice little illustration of some random thing. This one's called 3 a.m. Carmen wakes up in the middle of the night. The cat, she opens the window because she hears scratching, and it's that mean old tomcat. He swipes right at her, jumps in the room. And then there's other cats outside. This cat actually will become a regular too. This mangy black cat. And I guess she's just had kittens. So she drops her kittens in Carmen's apartment. Carmen gets a garbage can lid and a poker. She's ready to do battle. But I guess Carmen isn't a complete sociopath. It's not like she beats these cats' head in. She just wants to scare them back out of her apartment. Even the kittens, the cute little kittens, are mean, and they swipe at her with their claws and get her hand. So poor Carmen, even though she's such a mean old lady, sometimes she's very put upon, and you can't help but feel sorry for her. She just wants to get back to bed. And these cats have overrun her apartment. She's sitting there just grousing in her chair. And the little kittens climb up in her chair and start biting her more. So she fills up a pot with water, and it looks like she's going to drown the kittens in him. But then that mangy cat is just glaring at her. And Carmen realizes she can't do it. So she gathers up all the kittens in a basket and the mangy cat, and she takes them outside. And she goes over to Raoul's and wakes him up and says, you got to take these kittens. You have to call up the zoo and have them take them away. And I guess Raoul was drunk anyway. He was awake. So he's just like, this is fine. Let's have a party. He's talking to the cats. Carmen lets that mean old tomcat stay. I guess that is kind of like her cat now. Carmen actually says something very un-Carmen-like. Animals are like people. You need to love and understand them. You need a lot of skill. It's funny because she doesn't treat any human with love and understanding. We have 13 below zero now. It's a very cold day in France. All the pipes are frozen. So Carmen goes out to her little well. She has the only person in the neighborhood who has her own little well. Man, this art is particularly beautiful. This page, the silent page. I think his art's actually getting even better somehow. So everyone in the apartment hears her pumping her well, the squeaking sound. And you can hear them saying, oh my God, she has water. We gotta go get some from her. I know she's a mean old lady, but there's no way she can refuse us. So Raoul and this other guy, Moldoni, they go out to basically plead with Carmen. Carmen has all the water she wants. And they go out with buckets. And they plead with Carmen. And as you can imagine, Carmen doesn't give two shits about them. She doesn't offer them any water. So this guy Moldoni kind of passively aggressively just says, okay, that's all right. I'll just leave a bucket right here. She can't not see it. It'll be right near her front door. And I'm sure she'll fill it for me. She's a fellow human being. And she says, thank you, Mrs. Cru. Thank you. God bless you, as he walks away. And these guys got to go home to their wives and explain how they don't have water. So Carmen does see the bucket. And she fills it up. And it looks like she's walking up the stairs to give it to him. But no. Carmen Cru pours the water on the steps so it ices over, leaves the bucket at the bottom, and now once again, just through dialogue, through her walls, we hear Moldoni say, oh my God, it worked. There's my bucket at the bottom of the steps. And he runs for it and, of course, totally falls down the steps, injuring himself. And Carmen doesn't feel any guilt at all. She's just, people take advantage of the bad weather to come and bug me. I almost caught my death of cold out there. Here's that little black cat. Now we have the poultry. And so Raoul informs Carmen. He says, hey, we got these ducks. I don't know how they got them. Raoul, I don't know. Someone gave it to him. He's like, we can't keep them. My wife's allergic. So I threw them over your fence. They're yours to do whatever you want with them. And besides, I don't even know how to, prepare a duck for meals. And he's just long-windedly telling her about how, if it was a fish or a rabbit, I know how to do that. But I just don't know how to prepare a swan. I'm sorry, a duck. I don't know why I said swan. So she meets the ducks in her backyard. And, of course, it's Carmen Cru, so they bite her, or try to. She grabs him by the neck and throws him in this little coop. I guess at one point she had chickens, so she has this coop. But then she takes the thing off the door so they can walk around. And the whole time she's complaining. She's like, oh, I got cats all over. I got bees, and now I got these ducks. And I guess she consoles herself with the fact that now she'll have free omelets for breakfast from the duck eggs. Next, we have insomnia. Once again, Carmen Cru wakes up in the middle of the night, and this is like Carmen Cru's origin story. This is kind of amazing, this one. She goes downstairs, and since she can't get back to sleep, she picks up her old photo album, and we get to see it. Her as a little baby with her mother and father and grandfather. Her old house, which is still her house. We see it back when there was just nothing around it. Going to school. We see that granduncle, the shepherd, who ended up giving her that umbrella in his will and his land. Her first bike, a little tricycle. She had a fiance at one time, Stanislav. That's where she got her name Cru. We see the house, how other houses are building up around it now. Once again, these drawings are exquisite. They're so good. So pretty soon she separates from her husband after they get married. It looks like she lives with her mother. We see more and more building up around the little house. So I guess the mother has to go to a home, and then Carmen inherits the house. There's a little note that says, remember to stick a shot here, me today, which I have a feeling she'll never get around to doing. So her clock isn't working. So once again, she has no compunction about waking up Raoul just to ask what time it is. And he says it's 5:30. It's almost daybreak. And Carmen denies it. She says, you're wrong. You're an idiot. You're lying to me. There's no way. I spent the whole night looking at pictures. I've never wasted any time in my life. Only idiots have time to waste. So Carmen is such an ornery old lady that she just has a couple hours of, sentimentality, looking back at her life, thinking about her mother, and it bothers her. And she's like, that's for idiots. That's not me. I would never do such a stupid, frivolous thing like that. So all these stories are really funny, and she is kind of like a one-note character, but really not. Like, as these stories progress, we find other facets to her that are kind of fascinating, because she really does seem just like this just pure malevolent force of nature. Oh man, that's it for now. I'm so glad there's 7 more issues, which we'll look at next time. More letters, and that is it for French Ice featuring Carmen Cru, the wonderful work of Lelong. Hope you guys like looking at these. And I hope a lot of people watch this video and maybe petition some company to put these out, or just bootleg them, and someone translate the rest of them. There was 8 albums of this in French. In French, published in France, and they were quite popular. Carmen Cru is pretty big in France. I couldn't find anything on Carmen Cru except on French Wikipedia pages and French websites in the French language, so I couldn't really find out more. But there was a lot of them. So I think Carmen Cru is quite popular, and Lelong was popular in France, and yet doesn't really seem to have a presence here in America or anywhere else. So maybe, I don't know. I hope this video goes viral, so people will maybe call up, I don't know, IDW or some publisher and say, hey, bring out those Carmen Cru comics. It could happen. Maybe. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.